diff- different artists, and also different movements that are occurring in the space. And I'm a big believer in blockchain. I think it brings a lot of transparency to the space and empowers the individual. And it's an innovation that's kind of been under the hamper for a while, and it's getting ready to get unleashed, I think. And we do these spaces in an interview style, just one-on-one for about 40, 50 minutes. And if our guest has time at the end, we can open it up for Q&A as well. But for everyone that's listening to the recording, please share this out. Greatly appreciate you getting the word out there for us. And without further ado, we'll go ahead and jump right into it. Texas Slim, it's a pleasure to meet you, sir. Digitally.
Yeah, digitally, of course. Yes, you know how the Beef Initiative starts is with a handshake, and some of those have been digital. But appreciate you doing this. We've been doing a lot of grinding here lately, and there's a lot that we can talk about because I think the world is seeing, what we've been facilitating as far as the issues, but definitely now into the solutions. So I appreciate this. This is going to be a good hour.
Yeah, yeah. I'm looking forward to it. Typically the first question I start off with everybody is feel free to tell the audience a little bit about yourself, your background, experiences, anything that you'd like.
Well, I always tell people I come from the dirt roads of West Texas and agricultural poverty, and I'm a sixth generational Texas up here in the Panhandle. The Panhandle of Texas is pretty foreign to most people. It's very rural, but one thing it's always been is very fertile grasslands, water table that basically the United States has been able to have access to, all of our lives. And because of that, you've seen, agriculture in my lifetime switch into, and by the time I was 19, I had to flee to Austin, Texas, and basically started studying technology with a bunch of cyberpunks. And I became over a 20-year career, became a 25 really research analyst in big tech. And then I exited out of big tech and combined my skill sets from where I come from and what I learned in this world. And I was very fortunate to be a part of very transformative times in technology, from being very young in the dot-com boom to the dot-com bust to online software and just how we've evolved. But at the same time, I've seen the food industry and especially the cattle industry, and where we started when I was young, and then like where we are to now. And it's a good comparison to look at, the issues, what worked in the past, and what we kind of need to reinvent and invert back into our modern times. And that's something that I looked at several years ago, and we were just talking before we went live. But, if you look about, food, health, money, communications, this is something I've been involved with my whole life, from agricultural that didn't have the word organic in it, all the way into knowing what, you know, um, basically the base layer of the internet is, and how we operate now with communications and how we access food and how we don't, how we take food to market and how we treat our land. And, we're at a time now that I think, there's an awakening coming. And so we're all going to look at better money, better food, better communications, better relationships. And that's what the Beef Initiative is all about.
Great introduction. So you mentioned West Texas. Is that like Lubbock, Amarillo area?
Yeah, we call it the Llano Estacado. It's the Cap Rock. It's the Desert High Plains. And what
Yeah.
it is, it's up here on the very top of the Panhandle of Texas. And Lubbock's 100 miles from where I grew up.
Hmm.
And I would grew up probably about, probably as a crow flies, 10 miles, 12 miles south of Amarillo, Texas.
Yeah.
And so, but my whole family comes from this part of the country. And if you study it deep, the first Texans where I come from was the bison. And so whenever we established the Texas Panhandle, it was back in what didn't happen until after 1878, and it's the last part of Texas that was actually established
Hmm.
in the modern times. And what we had was a war, and it was the Comanche American War, and it was the longest standing war in our history. But after that, we came up to this fertile grasslands, and then we started commoditizing what we saw. And then, of course, we defeated the Comanches by destroying their food supply, which was the bison.
Hmm.
So, there's a lot of history up here that we can reflect on modern times, because we can kind of look at it and see what happened in the past and see how it's trying to reinvent itself going into the future.
Yep. I spent a little bit of time. It's probably been about 10 years now. In a former life, I worked with EMRs, the medical record system for hospitals, and I was specifically focused on critical access hospitals. So did some zipping around on those roads, very long and flat.
Yes, they are. And, we got places called Plain View up here. And it's kind of funny because, if you look at it from the raw eye for the first time, it looks menacing and it's just looks like nothing. But if you're really kind of able to study the geography, the people, it's
Hmm.
a very pioneering place, but it has some majestic beauty that a lot of people don't even, realize is out here. So it's a fascinating place.
Oh yeah, and I remember the people, and love the people out that way, and ended up coming out there many for many more engagements, and yeah, I met some of the wisest physicians I've ever come across were out that way. Good people.
I love that you say that. I was born into one doctor that treated me my whole life. And if you look at all these small towns up in this part of the country, that's all we ever had was that homeopathic, family doctor. And that carries a lot of wisdom. And if you look about how we separated out of medicine into basically pharmaceutical, there is no medical treatments anymore, really,
Hmm.
except for if you got trauma. Trauma's good, but if you look at how our doctors have evolved as well, you can kind of look at this part of the country. And, I can really reflect. I don't take vaccines, never have. I've broken 20 bones in my body, I've got 14 pieces of metal in me, and very few doctors have ever treated me as far as my health. But, putting me back together, I've had a lot of experience that in modern medicine too.
Hmm. Yeah. And so you mentioned you have Beef Initiative. You started that back in 2016, 2017. Before you kind of went public with it. Can you kind of
It
go
was,
through?
it was
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, yeah. Well, just to correct, the research and analysis started back probably about when I left big tech was back in 2016. I walked away from it. I kind of had a Big Short
Mhm.
Brad Pitt moment, and I was disgusted. And so it was a long haul that I was ready to get rid of. But I took about a year of consulting, and then that's whenever I really tapped into what was going on with our communications, media, everything. And so I did a deep dive, and that led me into food intelligence. I had a life threatening accident type thing that happened. And so I was laid up for about 8 months. And that's when I really knew that the Beef Initiative had to come fruition. But I had to go do some more work. And then I betted myself in a harvest company back in 2021, and that ended early so I could start writing the Harvest of Deception. And that's whenever we basically led in formally with the Beef Initiative.
Mhm. And could you dive into Beef Initiative?
Well, if you come from where I come from, the dirt roads of West Texas up here, okay, we have some of the biggest multinational corporations. 85% of cattle in the state of Texas come from the Texas Panhandle at one point in time, either in a box or on hoof or whatever it is in the feed yard. But whenever you look at technology and you look at our cattle industry and you look at the legacy thereof of raising cattle, land stewardship, everything there is, we got into some issues pretty early. But if you look at the evolution of the cattle industry, we surrendered over basically some of the best natural resources over to multinational corporations, other
Mhm.
countries, and a lot of people in the United States don't understand the variance of that and basically complexities of that. And if you look at where we are with technology and where we came from, the independent rancher producers never had a voice in the digital world. So I know that they've lost their brand identity, and that's one of the most important things for an independent operator. And so I looked at the technology side and the pay to play basically facilitation that we're in as far as getting known or seen. And that brand identity is extremely important, but we're trapped in the app, basically, is what I like to say. And if you look at how we do not have access to process our own beef and sell our own beef in the United States, it pretty much coalesces into the same chart of not being able to be sovereign and independent anymore. So I knew that we had to decentralize our cattle industry, kind of how I grew up. And if you look at, I came in at the last Bitcoin, cycle there in 2020 and 2021 to where
Hmm.
where we are now. And, I got really deep into the mindset of Bitcoin was the most fascinating thing that really my aha moment. It wasn't anything about the store of value or bending space and time or transparency,
Hmm.
but the decentralization is what I was very good at in big tech, and building networks and understanding and doing the analysis thereof. So I put those two together, and I was somewhere up here in the Panhandle. I just had that light bulb moment. I knew that we
Yep.
could decentralize beef in a way that we'd never done before. But it was a 10-year project, and we're 5 years into it now, and we can kind of speak about everything that we saw then and where we are now.
Hmm. One of the questions that's kind of come into my mind, I remember being out that way. This again was like 10 or 12. This was probably 8, 10 years ago. Big concert venue. I think it's probably in a different town. Is it Billy Bob's? Um, I, I saw an artist once. His name's Jason Eady. Um,
Hmm.
and great show. But I remember walking around an area. I think it's called the Stockyards. Is
Yeah.
is is that? Do they still? Is that where a lot of that cattle trading occurred at? Is it still active today?
Well, you got the Stockyards, and you got Billy Bob's. You've got, down in Houston, Dallas, Fort Worth. You got all these honky tonks and places that, are pop culture, but the pop
Yep.
culture comes from, what it used to be to do a cattle drive in the very beginning. And so Fort Worth and Dallas, Fort Worth area, that was a huge stopping point. It's the Stockyards, but you have a lot of Stockyards that were, in unison or before. Amarillo, Texas has a majestic stockyard that was the number one marketing hub for wholesale cattle in the world at one time. And so
Yep.
if you look at the trading of commodity and you look at the trading of cattle, 90% of cattle is traded online. And it's not done by the independent ranchers and producers. It's done by businessmen trying to make the best money. So, you got big business. Beef is a 400 and I don't know, 420 to 460 billion dollar industry. And so, if you look at commodities and beef and that we're on a global, basically scale of how we look at food, then there's a lot of places that are very key for the cattle industry, and a lot of people don't know which those places are.
Mhm. And, so you mentioned kinda how the status quo is today where it's run by a lot of the larger corporations. W I guess whenever you mentioned 2020, 2021, you came across Bitcoin. What was the, where how did you find out about Bitcoin? Did you just see it on the internet or a buddy talked to you about it? Curious
Well,
about that.
Well, I was one of those dumbasses that was, in Austin, Texas, and too busy to pay much attention because my life was different. And, it takes 100 hours to look at it. And so it
Oh, yeah.
was through a time of suffering that I had the patience to look at Bitcoin. And I'd always wanted to get into it back in 2017, but it just, whatever, you don't make excuses. It just what it is. But, whenever I started looking at Bitcoin, it's big and flashy at first as far as a bright, shining object. And you get a lot of good influence and bad influence. But like I said, I like to use sailors, analogy of Manhattan and two city blocks, and then,
Mhm.
how they built wealth off of that. But then what happened with me, I was, my family, my grandfather had several sections up here on the Cap Rock. We had to get out of agriculture in the 80s, and that was during the farm aid and savings and loan and all that kind of reset that we had in the 80s. And a lot of people don't understand what happened. That was asset reallocation. Okay. And what happened with that? We lost the value of our land, and we used to leverage our land and our cattle in different ways than we do now. And sometimes we can't even leverage, those assets in certain ways. And so if you look at Bitcoin being digital land and how we've lost the store of value in cattle and in farming overall, we have a new store of value that's decentralized, and it's a peer-to-peer relationship that's usually, between two people. And so you look at the internet and you look at relationships relationships, peer-to-peer transparency with authenticity, is where we're going. So I pretty much established the beef initiative on the Bitcoin ethos. And it's fun whenever
Yep.
people kind of look at it and say, man, you really did this. And one thing that we have to understand though is Bitcoin is just a tool. It's a mindset first. And if you look at farming and ranching and everything that is agriculture, and this is not a stab, it's reality. The aptitude of technology is slow to catch up to. These people are out there working land, they're working livestock. And so there's a big educational curve here, and there needs to be a bridge of balance of both sides of food and fiat money and consumers and ranchers and producers. And so I knew it was going to be a long haul as far as educating, but we're in a position right now to bridge with a lot of good education that comes with proof of work. And a lot of people can kind of look at Bitcoin as far as their entry point of education, and they can kind of now listen to us. I've got ranchers now. We have Cole Bolton, and he was the first one to ever get a full coin. Selling beef through the Beef Initiative. We have Jason
Hmm.
Rick. He's a founding pioneer, owner of the Beef Initiative as well, because we had that understanding in the beginning of the balance that we have to get to, but also the tools in this decentralized, new property. A lot of people think Bitcoin is like a stock, and so with this type of education that we started leading in with the beginning with people like Cole and Jason and me, now we can really look at, and Cole has had a different experience in cattle ranching in Bitcoin than Jason has. And so now that we've put a half a decade into this, everybody can find their education entry point, but they can also find their leverage into this new technology that is property, and it's going to change the world in a lot of ways. Even if it's just the mindset right now, it's the best thing to adopt.
Hmm. Can you walk us through kind of how the organization or yourself is going out there, kind of like boots on the ground and engaging, a lot of these ranchers, and I imagine also local businesses as well. Are you just kind of showing up and knocking on the door, or what's that kind of process look like?
Well, I'll tell you what it was. I went on harvest, and you start in Texas, you go all the way to the Canadian border and back. And I was to a point at that time that I was reflecting a lot of how I grew up. I just got off a harvest. That's all I've known is agriculture, but many other things. But in agriculture, what you do is you go up there and you shake another man's hand, and that was my grandfather's. And they taught me how to have some character with relationship management. So I got basically dusted off, and I went straight to our farmers market in the town in which I grew up with. And I went up to this first rancher, and I went up and shook his hand, and I said, "Hey, this is who I am. This is what I'm doing. You want to talk?" And it was funny. His name was Justin Trammell, and he's owner of basically Panhandle Meats. Him and his family up here in the Texas Panhandle, and they basically, Justin was wondering if I was a Fed in the beginning. So it was pretty funny because way I've operated from the very beginning is a look in the eye and a handshake. And I asked them, "Hey, what are your pain points? Let's talk about it. How long you been doing this? Why are you doing this?" And
Hmm.
then I find out, with their pain points of processing or not being able to find, financial means to get loans or whatever it is. And so within that type of being human again, and actually having a relationship, I don't ever talk Bitcoin. That comes up in the conversation of establishing a relationship with another man, and it comes with respect and integrity. And
Yep.
so what I found right there is that the way I grew up was with that type of honor and integrity. And so I went off, and less than a week later I was shaking Cole Bolton's hand, and he was the second person. And then I was talking with Jason Rick, and they were the first three ranchers in the Beef Initiative. And our founding partner JP Valdez, he's part of Oshi. He has his own software engineering company. And so we got together and we said, let's build up a open source, crowdsource index to where we can start flooding people in. And I started bumping my gums about Bitcoin and beef, and we were off to the races. This is a grassroots, basically volunteer organization that has built structure and systems through, relationship management and education, receiving
Hmm.
it and giving it. And it's an industry specific, project. It's not just about selling beef online. That's what the one opportunity that we could do in the beginning because of COVID. And you had Butcher Box just blowing up and delivering box beef. Well, that was a new form of facilitation and distribution that had never been done before. So we jumped into the game, and because of this approach, anybody, we have Rough Shot June. Look at him, man. He heard me on Bitcoin kindergarten, and now he's our creative strategist and our lead executive design, mastermind.
Yep.
And that was through relationship management of me and June. And then within a year, he was in my pickup truck, and we were going across the country for 64 days. And so those that I always say, if you have ears to hear and eyes to see, man, this is open source. And the right people that come in and bring their own innovation, well, we work with them and we embed it into, what we've built collectively. If you look at agriculture as a whole, during probably my lifetime with subsidization of cattle in our food industry, we really started competing against each other in a fiat way. And what we have to get back to is that collaboration that got us to be so powerful, with our food industry, agriculture, and that's what you're kind of seeing now. And I wanted to kind of try to be a model to that. That it's not a competition, but it's a true collaboration. Everybody has a spot here.
Yep. That's awesome to hear. And, just to kind of add to it, that's a commonality I see, with the businesses that start up in the ecosystem. Whether it's the Bitcoin trading cards or other applications that are being dealt, there's a lot of community involvement to like, hey, we're gonna get behind you and also, be a part of this movement. And it's so cool to see that, because it's purpose driven, it's mission aligned people that are just kind of, just slowly trickling in, but getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
Well, and if you look, I was off the internet as far. I've never been a social media guy, and I've never spoke in front of people or anything like that. This has been kind of a God thing for me on how it started and how
Yep.
where it's come from. But a lot of people are, always ask me, why did you start the way you did? And the reason I started the Beef Initiative the way I did on social media was through Twitter because, it was a place where you could actually get some traction with some intelligence and not get censored too much. But
Yep.
if you look at it, yeah, I started in the Bitcoin space because of the ethos, and it comes with a lot of people that, they want transparency in everything they do. And once you get deeper into Bitcoin, you meet some very fascinating people, and it's really easy to, really see who people are and what they're trying to do. And there's a lot of different characters, a lot of different education, a lot of different theories in Bitcoin, but there is a commonality there. And as far as moving forward, I think it's the best place to really kind of jump in with innovation. The technology is open source. And so it's a lifestyle, right? And this lifestyle that's foundational with combining the old with the new with Bitcoin and beef, like we're doing it becomes a pop culture move. And a lot of people now will start gravitating into, kind of the mindset that we had maybe back in 2020. Well, it's evolved. Bitcoin has evolved. The bad actors come in and come out. You have the new crypto cycles. We're going to have so
Yep.
much corruption. What's the next Ponzi scheme? But now I think that it's going to be a very powerful place to really facilitate. You look what Senator Loomis is doing up in there in the north, up there in Montana. Everything that's going on right now is very positive for the education, for the evolution of Bitcoin and the development thereof, as far as the understanding. So anybody that's put some time, and if they were really authentic with what they were going to try to pull off instead of just number go up, I
Mm-hmm.
think the Bitcoin innovation that's just happened in the last 5, 7 years is really going to have a powerful punch in governments and in the public's eye, and then in business as a whole. So I think that we're in a really good place.
I wholeheartedly agree. And, with those that are starting their journey is, really diving into, because, there's a lot of different options out there, but everything, in my opinion, starts with Bitcoin. And you got to really
Yes.
dive in and understand the proof of work and, the reasoning behind that, because that's where the secret sauce is. That's where the aha moment comes and the light bulb, starts bringing off all the ideas when you truly grasp, that Bitcoin first approach there. And
Well,
oh, go ahead.
yeah, well, I just love to give credit. I was, Rob out there at Bitcoin Park and, in Nashville, he's the first one that said, hey, we got a new slogan. And it's build out locally and broadcast globally. And so
I
we
like
get
it.
to, pattern language matters now, right? And so if you look at the Bitcoin ethos and what's possible, and if you really understand that you can send money across the world with no borders, and if you look at agriculture and you look at land and water and cattle and livestock, okay, it's the same stuff, man. Our cattle industry in the United States, where it is right now, on the commodity side of cattle, with GMO corn, the type of feeding apparatus that we have. Well, if you look at Bitcoin and how raw and new it is, and you look at a new understanding that we can have regenerative cattle and beef, and that's where we should be anyways. It's a beautiful thing that, I've been around the world twice now. I've been 300,000 miles in, collectively 200,000 close in a pickup truck. There's no borders here, and people can use their imagination in new ways. And you gotta bridge your imagination over just not only into Bitcoin, but what are you passionate about in life? I'm passionate about being a freaking cowboy from West Texas and being around horses and cows and land all the time. If people would take that leap of faith and open up those borders of their mind, decompartmentalize their mind so they can compartmentalize an industry or a passion, man, this is the most exciting time that anybody's ever been presented with. People need to start moving on Bitcoin and what their imagination will lend to them. And because this is a whole shot moment over the next 3 years, I guarantee you.
I
Yeah.
gotta. Oh, go ahead.
Hey,
Sorry.
hey, Mr. Wagmi, how are you? This is
Pretty good,
June.
sir.
Good, good. Hey, I just wanted to jump in here. Thanks for having us all on. This is an important, sort of cursory overview of the beef initiative and, how we put things into play. And I wanted to jump in here regarding all the Bitcoin entry points that the beef initiative has discovered over its years, sort of pioneering into the agricultural space. Because you can only know what you know, and a lot of what you know has to come from building new experiences. And that's what the Bitcoin mindset allows for. That's what that decentralized mindset allows for. And when I got in that pickup truck with Texas Slim last year, it really opened up my imagination for what this country was and what the world could be like when we just get off of the highway system for 30 minutes. What I realized was that 30 minutes off of pretty much every highway system in this country, because we traveled the whole country from Texas to Virginia up to Northern California and Colorado and all around the place, is that 30 minutes off of every major highway is cattle country. And what it takes to get there is a peer to peer kind of relationship. It's a leap of faith back into our agricultural heritage that we all share, that we all yearn for. And the process is truly peer to peer, right? And that's the other part of Bitcoin that's so important. So we have this decentralized aspect of Bitcoin. No middlemen, no intermediaries, no censorship. We have the peer-to-peer aspect of it, where it's literally a digital handshake that where you exchange monetary value. Um, and you have the number go up part of it too, right? I mean, that's a really important part of it because, at some point when Bitcoin does level out into just being money and not an asset that's growing at 150% a year, whether that will happen forever or not, we will see, right? But at a certain point, it's just going to become money, right? And we have been able to experience, in a sense, what it is like to use Bitcoin just as money, not for number go up, not for anything more than just being able to transmit value across space and time. And here's where this American project that's home base is in Texas and comes out of the United States goes totally global, right? If you look at beefmaps.com, we've got about, it's hard to say now, I don't know, it's somewhere between 150 and 200 ranches there in the US. They're slowly starting to bubble up in Canada. We've got some producers that are going to be onboarding from Norway. Shout out to Bitcoin Bowden, if you guys know him, and Hodlnot. Those two are big supporters of the Beef Initiative. Well, the Norway Beef Initiative is about to launch with a whole collection of ranches on beef maps. And, well, how do they pay for that? How do we transmit this value between two countries with two different currencies and yet we land on the same place? One is because we do this out of principle to be peer to peer. So when you go to beefmaps.com, you're not clicking into some big e-commerce bloated project where we're making $1 off of every steak, every ground beef we get a piece of. No, you're simply paying for a map listing, right? And how can we give market access to producers all over the world? One, you have to be principled about being peer-to-peer, about connecting people directly to their ranchers' domain names on the internet. I don't care if they have a .com or if they have Facebook or just an email or a Telegram, right? That map is how you'll get there. Well, we have to support that ecosystem. Of course, we're a business, right? We have to build this thing out. Well, we use Bitcoin every day to do that, right? And so this is something that we've learned in our experience of building out a decentralized cattle industry, a decentralized kind of lifestyle map where a lot of those markers on that map, me and Slim went to on our trip, and a lot of them were discovered in that trip, right? And so this this is the process and procedure for the beef initiative. And the other thing that I mentioned here was the number go up part. That is a really important part because we are at a really volatile moment in history. I would say it's the most exciting time to be alive in history. And we are at a monetary industrial, what does Slim say? He says it's a we're going through a industrial monetary global industrial monetary and food shift, right? And this is
Yes.
happening. We all know what the 2030 marker is, right? Trump is doing a lot of great stuff, but that's not the end of this thing. We are building regardless of what's going on politically, right? And so the number go up part of it is really important. And we have a great piece of evidence to show what exactly happens when the number goes up. Cole Bolton out at KNC Cattle in Luling, Texas. He is very likely the first rancher in the world to earn a full Bitcoin selling beef. Maybe we're wrong, maybe we're right, but we're pretty sure we're right because we haven't heard of anyone else. And what he did with that full Bitcoin was he sold it at its local top for more cattle. He expanded his herd. And then what did he do? Well, he started selling more steaks for Bitcoin again. And this is something that is completely impossible with the US dollar. It is completely impossible with the farm credit system and the US agricultural lending systems. It is completely impossible to break free from state subsidy and federal subsidies. But Bitcoin allows this mission to go on in independence and in self reliance. And so the way that we kind of tackle Bitcoin is three ways right now, right? It's that mindset thing. It is that decentralized mindset, peer to peer handshake. Um, no central authority to rule our knowledge bases or our, or our histories or our legacies, right? This is up to us to create. The peer-to-peer part of it is in that mapping system. It's in the being able to provide market access to a producer in any war-torn country or anywhere else that's not using US dollars to come and interact with our system. And I think that the future is looking a lot like um, there's going to be some other, kind of crypto focused, or not. I don't want to say crypto focused, but But there will be problems that I believe layer 2 Bitcoin stuff and stacks and like all of these other projects that are going on that they will be able to solve. Right. And so that's why I thought it was really important for us to come into this space as well, into this conversation, because I did want to open up the imagination here for what the future looks like from our side in agriculture. And it looks a lot like this, right? It looks a lot like continued centralization. 85% of beef in this country is coming from other countries, right? The beef that you're eating at the grocery store, that's not from the U.S. The ground beef that you're getting from Publix, it's got 100 different cows in that 1 pound of ground beef. The future is looking like a hyper surveillance state. That's what the future is looking like. And how does it get there? It gets there through, of course, digital IDs, and it gets there through CBDCs. And yes, Bitcoin will be used as a CBDC, right? So, what the challenge for the future for us, and before I get to the challenge of the future for us, let me just say this, that the importance of safeguarding our family farmers from a surveillance state that is going to judge them based on the carbon credit usage of their product, the cow. That is our mission always, is to protect the sovereignty of that family farmer. And so that's where I think that technologies like Bitcoin layer 2s and other cryptos and other blockchain related activities can shield ranchers from a lot of the state encroachment that will be happening, right? Whether that's building say, so one thing that we've been talking about is the carbon credit system is upon us. It is a new financial order. It's happening. There's nothing you can do to stop it. Doesn't matter if you believe in global warming or not. It's not going to go away, right? So we have to challenge that system in a technological way. And that's where I think blockchain and privacy focused tools can come into play, right? Because we're not going to sit here and let all those markers on our map, all those family farmers who don't believe in climate change, right? We're not going to let them go broke because they don't want to participate in, you know, a scam system, right? Whether or not the scam is real or not, right? So what we need to do is we need to build technologies that they can safeguard their privacy from the state measuring the carbon usage on their farms and then coming and taking their cattle or something like that, while also allowing them to enter this new economy and build from it, right? And so that's where I think forward-thinking folks like us in the Bitcoin space and folks like Texas Slim and everything that he's bringing to the table in agriculture, that's where we have to come together and build something that's future-proof. Because here's the facts. 141,000 family farms have gone by the wayside in the past 5 years. They've been taken over by corporate farms. We have 67 years left until the last family farm's gone. That's it. And we know what's happening with technology and with AI, and we know how this future is speeding up. We need to act now, right? And we need to funnel into the folks who are leading that vision and who have built the kinds of platforms and independent institutions that are built to allow for that peer-to-peer and decentralized and privacy-focused future to exist. So I know I kind of said a lot there, but I hope that kind of
Oh
teases
yeah,
the
I love
yeah.
every bit of it.
Well,
Cool.
and one thing, one thing that June said there that, about Cole Bolton, and, we can say that, you can basically be anonymous with Bitcoin, or you can, show that you innovate within Bitcoin. And whenever you look at the cattle industry and how we source beef, okay, Cole Bolton sold and basically traded beef and Bitcoin to a full coin and leveraged up to expand his herd, but that's through a USDA certified system. That's a vertical integration of, from the genetics of a cow all the way to your fork. And that's one of the biggest hurdles for most independent ranchers and producers in the United States to be able to do. Sometimes they're beholden to the multinational system. Sometimes they're beholden to Monsanto, Bayer, a bank that won't give them another loan. So what he did was revolutionary, and this is what we've been kind of holding our tongue about, because we're not in this. I like to say it, and it's not disrespectful, but we're not in a circle jerk of what's in the now. We can never be in the now except for the now, and we're always looking forward. We're talking to all the ranchers where they are as their entry point within Bitcoin. And so if you look at Bitcoin and what we've learned from Bitcoin in the way that we've approached it, the Bitcoin space can now really look at food, global food supply, aggregated distribution, processing centers, the vertical integration of how food is made and where it starts from the water table all the way to the fork. And if you have that type of understanding now with money changing, and it's a global industrial shift. It's coming. It's not going to be stopped. Hundreds of billions of dollars have been put into this new fake commodity that I call fake meat. And so that's going to basically get market share. There's going to be market gaps. And so what happens is that right now is all this poison sludge and bullshit debt's going to come at us again, because it will be. I mean, we'll have some good stuff and dirty stuff, but you can innovate right through the deceptions right now. And if you've combined, the innovation and the right minds, this is where the two parties come together as far as Bitcoin and beef, because the, pre training camp's over and we're going for an industry move here. This has always been about changing industry, and you have to identify where your entry point is where are the vulnerabilities that they're not paying attention to. And if you look at how they're trying to basically create one world food group, well, one thing that they don't have is truth. And now we have truth in food, because food is biology, it's not science. And now we get to show that there's new money, technology, and a new group of people that are going to be able to really create a legacy for their lives. And how do governments take over people? We use war, we use money, but you control the food, you control the people. And this is what they're going at. They always have been. And so the shift is occurring, and I'm thank God Trump won, because there's going to be some new truths that come out as far as inefficiencies in agriculture, and we're going to be right there at the doorstep to make moves. And we've got the Bitcoin space making a lot of moves right now. So thanks for the review, June. That was good.
Yeah, I want to say thank you for sharing all that stuff, because that type of input is a lot of the things that I love hearing more than anything. Because yeah, at heart, I'm a builder, and I like to tinker with stuff and bring things to life that weren't there. But what makes it most impactful is whenever someone has like a big challenge or a big pain, and you're bringing something to life that solves a problem like that. So just wanted to, reiterate, thank you on for sharing that. We want to hear that. And there's, I'm looking at the out in the crowd. There's a couple builders that I know that are out there that are listening too. Um, and I'm just kind of going through what you were mentioning about those processes where it's certified and how they're tracking and stuff like that, and then the need for transparency. Is there a lot of like from a software touch point perspective, these ranchers, what, is there a way to kind of aggregate and say these are the top 3 systems they're working with, or, what are those heavy hitters?
I love that question. Okay, let's look at education and agriculture right now. So the university systems. Who writes the curriculums for agriculture? Well, it's the people that is financing agriculture. Well, that's the multinational corporations. If you look at technology and where we started out, and how we've evolved into, the different levels of technology that we use now, enterprise wide, we've everything that is used in agriculture, the base layer of it is financed by the multinational system. And so what I bring into the table with our campaign with safebeef.org is this is an industry shift, and this is an industry move to recreate technology in agriculture across the world, because it's about to happen, and they're going to have to rewrite their code for this carbon stuff. It's not played out yet, especially with Trump. So you're going to have a lot of innovations within, software engineering, and you're already seeing that, programmers are not getting paid that much anymore. You got AI coming. So I'm going to bring awareness to our campaign of what SaveBeef.org is. I want to take over technology in agriculture, and it has to be done through a decentralized mindset. And with this new shift and transformation that we're going to about to be in the next 10 years with technology, if anybody acts like they know what's really going to happen in the next 3 years in technology, they're lying to you. You got to be in the now to see, and you got to be an innovator and a builder. And it's time. And you're going to have to, get new certifications or something. But, a train is coming. And you talk about building, and, there's some builders out there. Well, in agriculture, that's all we do. We build herds, we build soil, we build innovation of water tables, and so we don't have anything else to do but build. And that's why at this point in time, if you are innovating with money, technology, Bitcoin, beef, agriculture, I mean, you're going to rewrite history, and that's where we are, and that's what I've always tried to position ourselves into.
You mentioned with the new administration, the Trump administration coming in, is there any chance that this pending new requirements that are coming go away or get extended out or at least delayed? What's your guys' vibe on that?
Well, we've got, one of the best research analysts in agriculture, and that's Brianna Sagdahl. She's basically wrote the constitutional meaning of our foundation, I in Texas Slim Foundation. And so we've been looking and writing policy for a long time. She has, especially. And today, we just had something that passed. And so not only are we looking at, industry from, the e-commerce side and monetization, everything, but we're knee deep in stateside, local, and federal policy at this time. I mean, we're in communications with the current administration, nothing formal, but we have a lot of buddies here in Texas and South Dakota and other places that are getting called up just for interviews. So we know what's going on. We're not ever going to claim that we're writing policy, but we are writing policy to be approved, to be discussed, especially in the commodity side. Within the multinational system, you have a lot of associations that I've never dabbled into. I grew up around them. I never liked them, but you have to be a part of it. It wasn't part of my life or my agriculture or how we grew up. But there's a lot of ranchers out there right now. And so what we're trying to do is build a type of an association approach that is decentralized and it has the same values. And by doing that, we're able to look at policy and look at all basically the regulation, the regulatory control. And, there's a lot of bad things out there right now. But if you look at agriculture, there's a lot of quick things that we can fix. And that's what Brianna brings to us. I mean, we had the Chevron deference that got overturned by the Supreme Court. EPA uses that as far as, regulation and, what is basically reality and in regulatory control. So there's going to be some things uncovered that we're in the position to help with policy or to react within the industry to build around. So we're in a good place.
Yeah, and I just want to use this opportunity to invite all of the builders and anyone interested in participating with us in building this future to visit savebeef.org. Just drop your email there and we'll get in touch and figure out how to work together. And I also wanted to sort of frame everything that we do. Texas Slim just mentioned we're kind of like a cattle association. We're kind of like an e-commerce infrastructure. We do beef sales, we do map listings, we do policy work, we do relief efforts, right? And it's kind of a little confusing. What are these guys really about? Um, and I think the simplest way to put what we're about is we are a systems-wide solution or systems-wide approach to creating what will what is already in existence and what we need to build out more, which is the strategic beef reserve, right? That is the forever mission of the beef initiative. We're building out beef reserves for local communities, right? How do we do that? We do that through direct peer-to-peer sales. How do we do that? We do that through, value-driven e-commerce products, not necessarily associated with beef sales, like skincare and snacks and stuff like that. We do that through policy work and research through the I Am Texas Slim Foundation. We do that through the relief efforts that we've provided through the I Am Texas Slim Foundation. And so the beef initiative itself is really a collection of assets and systems that together we are using to fight this war on beef in order to build out the strategic beef reserves so that our communities don't go hungry, right? And we do that through Bitcoin. That is how we got here. And the mission landing page for this entire project moving forward in 2025, once again, is savebeef.org. So just so everyone kind of has an idea of the different movements that we have here, it really starts up at the top, pop culture. Texas Slim is pop culture. I don't know if y'all know, but Texas Slim was not his born name, right? He's out there screaming beef intelligence and saying all this crazy stuff about autonomous networks and pattern languages, and he's bringing a lot of new stuff to the agricultural industry. Well, that brand, that pop culture element, created the nonprofit foundation, the I Am Texas Slim Foundation. That is a financial vehicle that we can use to help fund our relief efforts, our research, and to help fund some of the development of our platforms like beefinitiative.com, beefmaps.com, and beefnews.org. And so this whole system is it is a self-contained, we like to call it, it's like a hyper local wheel, right? All of these different parts are spokes on this wheel. And if we can come together and endow this wheel with some good parts, some good metal for these spokes, and some good rubber for that wheel, then that's what we are after here in 2025, is these partnerships and these collaborations, and we'll do that through savebeef.org.
And on top of that, the savebeef.org, it's an ongoing war that's never going to go away. It's going to have brand identity forever, as it should be, because it keeps things top of mind. And it actually helps us, expand the reach of the cattle industry. There's so much value out there across this world of land, water tables, different genetics of cows, different communities, different ways to raise beef. And that's the beautiful thing about the cow. That's how the whole world can actually honor the cow now, and kind of change the tides on the ignorance that's being thrown and the deceptions, being covered up that the cow is a carbon hazard. Whenever governments are doing that to your livestock, you're at war. And a lot of people don't understand that. And we have, Dr. Brooke Miller. He's the past president of the U.S. Cattlemen's Association. He was the first person that I really talked deeply with. Our inventory of cattle right now are the lowest as have been in 70 years. And I say ever, but that's national security issues. You look what they're doing with inoculations and everything that is in the vaccine scheduled program in livestock. It's pretty frightening. And so this is a global shift. And if you make the right moves and create the right partnerships, you can change the world right now, and you can start saving people's lives, and especially children. Because in the United States of America, we're sick. We got the science. We got the proof. We've got over 300 doctors that we work with. We've got ranchers that are doctors that are, the old school doctors. We've got to get back to what food is, what relationships is. And, so this organization that we've built, it's a design that can basically, anybody can step into. So it's been a fascinating journey so far, but we're just getting started. And we have a lot of people looking at us globally, and that's a beautiful thing. So I'm just telling everybody to get ready.
Yeah, I wanted to take this opportunity to introduce someone here that's in the audience, Jeff Forrester. Mr. Wagmi, are you able to
Yep.
knock on his door and invite him up to the stage?
Yes. Let me.
And I just wanted to introduce Jeff because he's come into the fold of the Beef Initiative recently, over the past couple months here, and he really brings a lot to the table as far as his proof of work in um, building and building organizations and businesses, but also in sort of civic activity. Jeff is the current acting mayor of Wiley, Texas, and has a history in the food industry as well. I know that Jeff actually, I believe, this is his first time being on Spaces, so I'm not sure if he knows how to turn the mic on.
I did. I
Sorry,
sent the
Jeff.
invite. It does have to. They'll have to click accept on there, and then there is a mute button too, Jeff. Whenever you.
Okay, we'll see if he's active here. But I did just want to introduce him if he is available to just say hello. And um, he's Jeff is responsible for building some of these strategic partnerships that we're looking to create here in early 2025.
And
So,
also, if there he goes.
oh, there's Jeff.
There he
Hey,
is.
Jeff.
Yeah, amazing. I've got a little technological skill there. June forgets I did grow up in the world of today, so
How are you, Jeff?
I'm doing well, thank you. Yeah, it's great to be here. I've been listening in, and I think that there's not much I can add other than the fact that the mission of the Beef Initiative is clear. We are working together to save beef and to save the local rancher. How do we do that? We introduce people to their beef. I think June nailed it earlier when he said, hey, one of the things we face every day is those 1,500 cattle walking in the door of a plant, and you don't know what you're getting when you're getting ground meat. You don't know where it's coming from. You don't know if it's one or if it's 15 of those cattle. And I think that that's a disservice to those of us who are interested in the health and the nutrient dense product that we are looking for. So, I greatly appreciate the opportunity to work with the foundation and look forward to jumping on some calls and meeting folks in the industry. As June said, I have a depth of knowledge in the food industry. I've been in the business for over 20 years, and my civic involvement, I'm a servant leader. I'm here because I believe in this initiative, and I believe in Texas Slim. So, I appreciate your time today.
Thank you.
Hey, Jeff, thank you. It's good to be able to share a voice with different voices now. So, when we started this, we've always invited people in. It really is volunteers. We've always done this. People are confused, how much money we're making. We're in a position to live a life that basically helps build these relationships. And all the right people have come in at the right times. And Jeff Forster's, a lot of people will be hearing his voice now. So thank you, Jeff. And I just wanted to say we also have Steve Williams with Better Fed Foods. He's out there. He's regen beef. And if he can come up, I met him in Ginger Hill. We had a conference out there at Brook Miller's Ranch, and we're into input change in cattle ranching and agriculture. So if you look at regenerative inputs and how valuable they're going to be now, but especially into the future, Steve Williams is one of those guys that's leading the charge with us. And it goes to show you, he asked me, he goes, hey, what do you need? And, June and I had been wearing out that pickup truck, and I just said, hey, we need a sponsor truck. And Steve Williams was able to do that. But it was because we have this collaboration and we're all doing the same thing. We're just touching different layers of agriculture, but bringing it into one system. And this is how these grassroots, organizations kind of form into the collaboration that we become. So I don't know if Steve can come up, but there he is. Hey, Steve. Yes, sir. Go for it.
We can hear you.
Hello.
If you can
Hey,
hear us, you're good.
hey, Steve. No, we can't hear you, Steve. So I think we're gonna have to mute him. So
Guys, if you can hear me, I'm working on the technology in the truck I just got into, and so I'm not able to hear y'all, and I apologize that. But if you can hear me, it's been a great conversation. I've gotten most of it. Appreciate being part of this. Excited to join the conversation and join with my brothers in Bitcoin. I'll just say something real short because, like I said, I can't hear you, but I'm getting thumbs up. So, as Slim said, this starts back one level deeper from the cow, and that's the land, and that's where I entered this conversation with Slim. Is how the land and even below the land, so what's how we take care of that will affect how the animal behaves, how the animal produces, and so everybody walks around with the statement, "You are what you eat." But it's actually 2 layers deeper than that. It's what you eats, which is what that cow eats, but you can feed her GMO junk. So it's actually what you eats. So ponder that for a minute, and I'll jump off and take me off the speaker, and I can listen in response, but I appreciate it.
Thanks, Steve. Yeah, and what that means is, we think that I always say, food is not science. Food is biology. And if you've looked on how we got here, and our health and what changed, well, we quit eating the dirt, is what I like to say. And we've got vitamins, but we need minerals. Where do minerals come from? And where I come from, we had thousands, millions of bison for hundreds, thousands of years that roamed this grassland in the majestic soil that it was. Well, we can get that back, and we can get it back in a way that doesn't destroy anything. It builds new relationships, and it's an inversion and a transfer into everything we used to do, and it's what our grandfathers knew. And it's what we were taught, through hundreds of years. And the general public doesn't understand biology, and that's the problem. And so, but companies and, what Steve is doing and, our other partners, this is going to be an educational ride that everybody can really grasp a hold to, because it's going to be associated with health now. Health of our nation, health of our children, health of ourselves, and health of our communities. So it's going to be a fascinating journey.
And thank you for all that. Yeah, Texas Slim. I remember, I think when I first came across you, it was the podcast you did with Anthony Popliano. And I remember you going through the metrics, like the evidence is there in front of us. You see how many people are, diagnosed with diabetes and all these other conditions. And one of the other things that I found interesting when I was watching that, I'm not too familiar with the process, and it's been a bit since, but I think you went through like how traditionally, the cattle are bred, and if they're not bred right, that can also cause different abnormalities or something like that. Could you elaborate on that?
Well, I mean, if you look at cattle breeding and kind of where we've come from, in the United States, we have the Angus is a prominent breed, but it's really, there's so much that you can learn as far as just knowing your animals. And Jason Rick, he's out there in Colorado with Rick Ranches, and he talks about observational science. And if you really understand livestock, and where I grew up, you grow up with all kinds of different livestock, and you have the rodeo, you have FFA, you have 4-H. If you look at how we've engineered our cattle industry, and I love the Angus cow, I also love a damn good Texas Longhorn and the Brangus, and there's so many different breeds of cattle that we have an understanding of that we could bring to the forefront. So, we've lost that beef intelligence as a nation, and we had that before, and it was a friendly competition. If we look at livestock as far as being natural and not some commodity and something that you need to honor, that you can really educate your children, your communities from the ground up, and everybody's healthy. And so we have to open up our minds of understanding what food is, for one. And we have to change. I think on Pomp, I said, what is your consumption model? What is your audio, your video, and your food? Because they're correlated. And if you can get back to the earth, the source of the seed of the issues, I think everybody's now waking up to, well, there's, we've created a source of the seed of the solution, and that's honoring cows and understanding, that a lot of this stuff that's going on with diseases, we have the bird flu coming, it's a lot of propaganda, but a lot of it is issues because of the way that we treat genetics and how we basically house cattle together. The independent ranchers and producers are not the problem. It's the multinational corporations, and how they facilitate the lack of understanding is what we have to wake up to. This is a call to action. There's something going there's something going on here that people need to pay attention to. This is a shift. And if you look at your health and your lack of understanding of livestock and biology and land, why are the housing divisions that are going up across this country? That's asset reallocation. That used to be grasslands that cattle need to be on. You look at the Texas wildfires, that was 1.2 million acres that burnt, and then there's ways that they come in and they put solar farms, they put windmills, and that's just multinational corruption. And if we don't wake up to the, a nation to wake up to what's really going on in front of them, it's so simple. It's so simple, it's complicated. And that's how I've always looked at this. So, let's honor the cow and let's discover the cow again. And this nation will grow again the way it's supposed to.
I agree with you. And for those that are listening here in the audience and also to the recording, so you mentioned beefmaps.com. So whenever a user goes there, I'm actually on the page right now and I'm seeing all the different little plots. So I guess I would just look for one that's local to me and click on one of those cursors, and I would reach out directly, and then they all accept Bitcoin, or some of them do. How to engage
Well,
on that page?
yeah. Yeah, so that is our connection to ranchers, directly to their primary sites. So whatever technology they use is what you'll be connected to. And the whole goal with beefmaps.com is, okay, there's a great story of a rancher. His name is Jesse Cospade, and he is out in Kentucky, and he signed up. He's a Bitcoiner, and that's how he found us. Most ranchers are not, right? And this is a pretty exclusive group,
Yeah.
despite how big Bitcoin is in the news. Um, but this guy's a Bitcoiner, and he spent. He wasn't selling any cows. He was a new rancher. He hadn't sold a cow yet, and he knew about us, and he said, "All right, I'll give it a shot. Let me pay $25 a month in Bitcoin to get my ranch listed on the map." So his little marker popped up there in Kentucky, and about a month and a half later, and basically $35 deep into his investment, he sold about $2,000 worth of beef. So this is the power of beef maps, right? And that person bought that beef by clicking on his link there, and sending him a message on Telegram. Jesse does not have an e-commerce system. He's not built out like that yet, right? And he didn't have the resources to do that yet. But now, because he's got this very nominal Netflix membership cost to, his marketing tool, which is beefmaps.com, now we can come in and say, "Hey, Jesse, you've got you let us know you sold a couple more cows. Well, damn, that's about 10 grand right there. Let's build out this website a little bit more, so you can sell even more cattle, right? Let's see what else you want to sell. Would you like to bring people into your farm and do a guest stay? You want to do a farm tour? Like, what else would you like to do?" Right? So beefmaps.com is the very first connection that consumers will make to their local ranchers, where we get the hell out of the way, right? We're not going to sit here and facilitate the whole relationship and make a dollar off of every single part of it, right? Because these ranchers they're dying. We have 67 years until the last family farmer's gone, right? So we're not here to make a dollar off every steak. We're just here to provide some market access. And so that's really the power of beef maps there. And then you'll see down there on beef maps, if you're on your phone, you'll get a different experience, guys. Beefmaps.com is totally self-funded. A lot of people don't quite understand the cattle industry and don't understand the role of technology, and we rely on those who do understand what we're doing to help support our mission. So savebeef.org is how you can do that. But that map is currently in beta, right? It's a great looking map. Oh, it looks fantastic. The colors are good. The listings could use a little work, right? We could use a little bit more flash and flare, and we need the support to be able to do that. So whether it's partnerships or donations or design work, whatever it is. But yeah, to answer your question, that's the power of beefmaps.com. Mm-hmm.
I like that because it's that gateway to engage with them, and then if they want to dive deeper, there's also ways to facilitate that digitizing for further engagement too.
Exactly. Yeah. Yep. And then we have beefnews.org. Beefnews.org. So those two platforms, Beef Maps and Beef News, they would fall under the purview of the Beef Initiative, right? And beefinitiative.com is where all of our delivery products, our subscription services, our soaps and skincare, that's where all of that is housed and sold from. That is also decentralized. We're connecting directly into producers' websites and retailing their products for convenience for people. Not everybody wants to go visit their rancher. Some people just want to hit the buy button once and get their beef delivered without a thought for the rest of the year, right? So that's where that value add is. Beefnews.org is the second platform that falls under the Beef Initiative, right? And beefnews.org is a place where ranchers can come and write directly from their ranch. We can plug them into it's built on WordPress, decentralized, right? Primary internet technologies. That's what we're all about here. First layer of the internet type stuff. But beefnews.org is where ranchers can write directly from their ranch. Actually, the top article that's on there right now is from Salt and Sear Craft Beef. They're out in Butt, Nebraska. Yeehaw. Um, and what they're able to do is not only are they able to write from their ranch, as the author, but they can also sell their products directly in the article because we have built an ecosystem that plugs everything in together, right? And so this is a completely unique freedom moment here for ranchers to be able to express themselves directly from their ranch and sell their products in the article. It's all one system. When you click buy in Beef News, you don't leave Beef News, right? Like you're buying that product from that rancher. I think Salt and Sear Beef is, I think we have up there a eighth cow, quarter cow, and a box of steaks from them, right? So you can purchase them while reading their article. So that's the power of this whole ecosystem. And you'll also see Salt and Sear Beef on Beef Maps. They're a featured rancher. You'll see their logo there glowing or pulsating on the map up in Nebraska. And when you click on that marker, you'll see the same products that are for sale in the article. Those same products are also for sale on the Beef Initiative, right? So it's an autonomous network that is interlocking and plays nicely together, and the whole thing is built on Bitcoin.
Fantastic, and thank you for kind of going through all the details there. If you all have a couple minutes, I could open it up to questions. I want to be cognizant of time. I know we're a little bit over.
Yeah,
Yeah,
let's have some
I think
questions.
about 15 minutes because I know Slim's got another gig here coming up.
Certainly. If anyone has any questions, feel free to request the mic, and we can bring you up one by one. And by the way, while you were going through some of that, and I know you mentioned earlier in the call too about all the different types of building that's occurring with Bitcoin. I just kind of having some ideas come to mind on ways that I don't know if it would be like inventory or different applications as well that could be anchoring in on chain. I think there potentially could be some possibilities there. Oh, I see your request.
That's what I'm right there. Exactly what you said. That's what I was interested in bringing to this group for sure. Were those questions, because I think, we're pretty first layer Bitcoin. We are CMS and Bitcoin, right? We're first layer of the internet folks, and we don't have expertise in these other forms of Bitcoin technology. And like I said before earlier today, I believe there is a role that, like, an NFT, for example, can play in
Yep.
providing both security and a form of wealth to these ranchers, right? Whether that's through like a fee, right? Like a meme coin that has fees that go right to the rancher, and the whole thing is tax deductible, right? Like these are the kinds of collaborations that need to spark from this moment.
Yep. I imagine there's ways you could use, like the SIP10 protocol is the one on Stacks, to where maybe it represents some type of reward point, or an NFT is a proof of ownership to a subscription or something like that. A lot of potential possibilities, a rabbit hole to go down, and, just kind of the biggest thing is always understanding the way that it's done today, so that, aligning to the the closest version, but also empowering with that, that freedom that comes with being on chain.
Yes.
And I see Chris just hop up here. How you doing, Chris?
What's going on, guys? How we doing today? Hey, I just had a question. Slim and June, I'm on a walk right now in beautiful Canyon, Texas, and I'm walking by a small little goat farm. This person probably has half an acre. One thing that I'm just kind of curious your guys' thoughts on, and I know that we've talked about this in our own private correspondence, but take the average American median income maker, somebody that lives in a rural or quasi-rural area, and you see this expanding Bitcoin space, and you see the value of Bitcoin continue to go up and up and up, and you kind of maybe have a little bit of hesitancy to enter into that Bitcoin space because it may seem like something that's totally unattainable versus your income necessarily. What would you guys say to people that are maybe in that type of situation where, hey, how can you enter into this market, into this network, without being super scared of how massive Bitcoin is becoming right now? Because really, I would say that in general, the average person could really only get just a crumb of a Bitcoin. And how can they enter into that space and then become a part of this network in the Bitcoin context?
Well, if you look at Bitcoin, and everybody thinks it's a stock, they don't understand Bitcoin. And I always say you got to put 100 hours into it. But by saying that, Bitcoin's a beast. And, how do you eat an elephant? Well, it's 1,000 bytes. And if you look at Bitcoin, you have to develop your market access to Bitcoin and understanding how do you take ownership of your education. And then, where are you in the entry point of owning? And then once you're through with that, then you can look at, dollar cost averaging. How many times do you eat each day? How much do you tithe? So you build that in with your education and the value you create. And so it's pretty easy to dollar cost average. And I think that's a good entry point on evolving up from, how do you own Bitcoin? And then, in the Bitcoin space, you're going to meet the right people. And that's the beautiful thing about it. So, your education evolves quickly as far as ownership and how you can leverage Bitcoin. Are you going to go buy a herd with it? Maybe you can talk about, going to people in a small community like Canyon, Texas, and say, hey, we want to build a herd, but we also want to start investing in Bitcoin. And, that's what I'll be doing next in this community, and Cole Bolton, Justin Trammell, people like that, Jason Rick, that's how we're going to evolve into herd building with a store of value that is Bitcoin. It's always the entry point of education and ownership, because there's going to be no new ownership of cattle, and there's going to be new ownership of money, and how do you leverage in with that? So if Canyon, Texas has got a university, I'd hit the university and, create a Bitcoin group. And, that there's a lot of people out there that you meet very quickly and you hear a lot of strategies of ownership.
Thank you for that question too. And I saw a Trippin request. Just brought you up too.
Yeah. Thanks. Number one, MrWagmi, thanks for putting this together. I did not think I'd be talking about beef when I jumped into the crypto space, and what a refreshing conversation it was. Yeah, like I really enjoyed it mainly because it does overlap with a lot of the things I'm interested in, which is kind of like how do we, I mean, you can just look at the bio. Like I've considered this like the next kind of commerce phase of, we've gone from brick and mortar to e-commerce, and then now what do we see with like decentralized commerce, where when you're buying and selling and doing this kind of commerce, it feels more like, you're at a farmer's market or you're at a public market. It's just a digital version of that. And as we keep getting better and better, it's nice to be able to build that out. To talk about that for you, because I could see, layer one Bitcoin transactions being a good thing for a use case like a herd sale or one of those large unit of value transactions. But what the layer twos open up are the possibility to kind of, especially with things like SBTC and some of the more liquid, not liquid, but the more easier to move assets on the layer twos. That opens up the doors to the more kind of point of sale type transactions, like you were talking about with the soaps and things like that. And you can kind of build a mini economy within the overall macro economy that's happening on layer one. If you guys ever want to talk about that, I'm always happy to chat.
Yeah, we're definitely looking to innovate into that space a little bit here in 2025. And you know what? We have all of these wings that we kind of establish where different people with different expertise kind of can play a role and help shape that that wing, right? Because what we're building here is essentially it's a parallel society that has, we spoke about these different spokes before, and that's another spoke on this wheel, is that kind of that layer two wing, right? Like Bitcoin, the layer one, that's the base layer, the money stuff. But this layer two talk, I mean, that's an entire industry in agriculture all by itself. And what better group to be connected to bring and build some of those ideas with than with the Beef Initiative and with all of the platforms we already have built to experiment with your ideas. Beefmaps.com is ripe for experimentation. This is all I do is experiment, right? Like this is what's so beautiful about what this decentralization mindset has brought to the table is we get to develop our own pathways. We don't have to follow those rule makers anymore. We have the truth on our side, right? So we know that it is up to us to forge through this new history, this future of peer to peer commerce and connection. So once again, savebeef.org is how you're going to get there to connect with us. The Once you drop your email, you will be led to if I'm not mistaken, it's changed a couple times, but if I'm not mistaken, as soon as you drop your email, you will be led into a partnership survey where you can tell us all about your ideas and how you want to bring those to the table, um, and then the next step is, how do we get there, right? that's where we're at right now, is the how do we get there stage. We have the platforms built, we have the ranchers there, they trust us, they know us, like us, and trust us. We've got the email systems built out, we're sending out tens of thousands of emails a week. All that y'all need to do is get involved with us and bring your teams to the table so we can build this out for real, and we can actually compete with these multinational corporations who are taking over not just our food but our health, advertising, medicine, everything, technology, everything, right? BlackRock's talking about forking Bitcoin. Okay, so what are we going to do about it?
Yep.
Let,
Yep.
yeah.
And one of the things too that kind of went off in my brain when you guys were talking about, the financing that, sometimes struggles that they might run into, that's a whole nother wing within the ecosystem to where there's applications being set up, in that fashion that are unique compared to, there's a billion chains out there. Me personally, I only mess with Bitcoin and stacks. So there's, things out there to potentially explore as well. And like Trippin was saying, for those more micro things, you know, transacting in seconds, and, fees, cheap too.
Well, and on that point, real quick, I mean, if you know what on this side of Bitcoin, what we're building, but look at cattle, look at the cattle industry and farming. How do you get loans? And there's so much corruption within lending and loaning, and how do you
Mhm.
have access to any money anymore? You don't, and that's part of the asset reallocation. A lot of people are having to sell their land because they can't build herds. They can't do proper land management. They can't, battle the cost of diesel and fertilizer. So, we have to have these new financial tools, and it comes from the Bitcoin, base layer. And that's the beautiful opportunity we have in front of us.
Agreed. Trippin, yep, feel free real quick. I know they have something probably here in a
This
couple
time it
minutes.
is okay. This time it is a question. I was wondering, are you involved, or um, have you seen any kind of involvement around like the real world asset side of it, where you could almost, tokenize the cattle herd and be able to represent that as like an asset on chain?
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's exactly what we're,
Okay.
looking at, because
Yeah.
you look at, go ahead, Jen, if you want to add into that.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Yeah, no, that's exactly what this 2025 and the Save Beef campaign is about. It is about looking at those ideas and discussing the viability of them. Right? We're not ideologues here. Um, we are experimenters and open-minded, and we jump off the deep end quite a bit. It seems to be our the name that seems to be our in our job description is jumping off the deep end. So let's jump off the deep end together. And yeah, absolutely, it's a
Well,
great idea.
and to say that real quick, to answer your question, we're building out, like, shoot, I know right now we we're building out two or three herds right now to go to market. What does that mean? Well, it means we don't have to go to the multinationals. It means we can sell the whole herd to a community, or we can sell, quarters, halves, fulls. It doesn't matter. But where we live right now in days and times, you can be a part and you can create your own system for your own food supply, and you can do it through the gates of the beef initiative, because we have access to all the processing centers that are not part of the multinational system. We have different brand identities, we have different regions. So the herd building in the cattle industry is about to change, and it's going to be a fun ride.
Fantastic. I know y'all have a call getting ready to come up, and just wanted to cap it off with saying thank you. Appreciate all the wisdom shared, all the information. Also, just discussing where there's opportunities, pain points, and goals. So, if always feel free to throw that over to the fence at us. We love chewing on those things and tinkering and trying to come up with possibilities. And above all, thank you for the time.
Yeah, thank you so much for thinking of us. Thank you so much for your support over the past, couple years. I've been seeing you, always share our stuff and like our stuff. And that's, believe it or not, we get censored like crazy on X. We really can't break 500 views, so we really love when people share everything that we do, especially if you guys share beefmaps.com links. That's not this big old money making project, right? Like, this is a public good. So if you share that link, you share a screenshot, people click on it, you're going to support your rancher, and that's just what it is. So yeah, no, but I do really appreciate the time here, MrWagmi. And hey, guys, let's build a category in this new beef industry. Let's build it on stacks, right? Let's figure it out.
Yeah, exactly. And we started off with SaveBeef.org, and it's just one battle right now. And this is going to be a fascinating legacy building journey and operation. So SaveBeef.org, just journey into it. We've got a huge opportunities across the board, and we're going to be very vocal about it. And if you just share out, SaveBeef.org, you don't even have to say Beef Initiative. Just pour people into, that phrase, because it is part of a bigger picture here, and it is to save our United States of America cattle industry and our food supply. And, I started this out and I said, this is the Great American Health Initiative being led by the Great American Rancher. And here we are 5 years later, and the mantra is, make America healthy again. So I think it's time to join forces, and we appreciate you. Thanks for having us.
Thank you. And happy to. Anytime, feel free to poke me on that. I'll broadcast it out to the world. It's a very good mission.
Thank you, sir.
All righty.
Thank
you all
for having us.
And please share the recording for those listening too. Thank you.
Appreciate your time.